Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Exploring the Lord of the Rings. This is session number 224 today. Very exciting. I'm glad to be back with you guys. Sorry I had to miss last week kind of at the last minute. I had a family conflict that arose and had to do that. But, you know, as we're all in this for the long haul, I hope that you guys can bear with me when things like that happen. Speaking of which, we're going to have some conversation on the subject of the long haul. We're going to talk about the long haul. I got to see several of you at Moots this past month. Got to see a bunch of you at Tex Moot, and then a few also at Sunshine Moot in Florida after that. And I got to talk to Evil Dr. Cannon, who gave me an updated list of the projections based on our performance to this point when we are scheduled to get to certain places in the book. So I'm gonna share his research there and show you where this is headed. I think you'll all be pleased. But first, I did want to make an announcement, and that is I wanted to make sure you guys knew what was going on in our space program, because our space program has just been taking off, and I think that's it's been really fun. So I wanted to share this with you, and instead of taking you straight to our space homepage at signumuniversity.org/space, I wanted to show you something else. The first thing I wanted to show you is the homepage of Eldarion.com. Eldarion is the awesome company that has built our new registration system. It's been so cool. And look, I can prove it. You go to their education tab, and there we are, partnering with this unique online university on the building of their digital campus infrastructure. Yeah, there's us, tucked in right between Harvard and Mass General. The Eldarion has been awesome. And so check out what they've built. This is BlackBerry. So BlackBerry is our registration system for space. If you go to, and it's there. So like if you go to our space webpage here and you scroll down, here's BlackBerry, and you can sign up. There's a sign up link right there. So you sign up for your BlackBerry account, and it's really simple. And it brings you to, so here's my homepage. And it tells you how many tokens you have like in your bank, so you can always keep track of how many tokens you have. And there's a link, you can now buy more tokens straight here through within BlackBerry, and that's really cool. BlackBerry is not Goldberry's evil sister. BlackBerry is named after the rabbit. It is true that we had Goldberry first. Goldberry was the system that was built for our MA courses. So we have our 4 credit courses, which run out of Goldberry, who is our elegant hostess for our credit-bearing courses. And then we were kind of joking about having some other kind of berry, and I was like, BlackBerry. And then I was thinking, of course, of Blackberry the rabbit from Watership Down, who is the clever rabbit who can solve all kinds of problems. And BlackBerry has been hard at work handling our very complicated, complicated on the back end. It's easy for you guys. Registration system here in space. So you can keep track of how many space tokens you have. You can check out the upcoming candidate modules, enroll in confirmed modules. I'll show you some of that. But I wanted to draw your particular attention to this green box up here, because we have a new special that we're running in space. It's a promotion just for April. And that is if you are in space already, if you've already purchased tokens for space, you've been taking some space classes, you can send a referral link to a friend. And if they sign up for a space module, then they get a free token and you get a free token too. So like both people get free tokens. So it's like 3 tokens for the price of 1, basically, that you share among yourselves. And you can get this multiple times. So if you have taken space courses and you refer like 5 friends and they sign up for space and get to take space modules with you, which is awesome, then you get 5 free space tokens, which is cool. And if you're not in space yet and you want in on this action, just find somebody among your friends who is, and ask somebody who works for Signum and we'll set you up. So anyway, it's so cool. So check out what's coming up. So here's the modules that we're offering in May. So I can just click on the May modules here and it shows you which ones have been confirmed. The way that this works is, of course, we put out a whole bunch of modules, like things that can tell us, oh yeah, I definitely want to take that one. And then we run the ones that people want to take so that we give people a wider variety to choose from. But then we are able to do all the things that people want to do. So, and if ones which are not successful, which we don't run, when we offer them, we usually, offer them again later. We've put them out there for the first time because people said they were interested in that. It, didn't work out that month, whatever, schedules and stuff, it happens. So we will offer it again later on. It's pretty fun. So anyway, so you can go through and you can see all the cool modules that we're offering in May. We've confirmed 14 modules for May. We're running 14 modules. So we've got our Advanced Old English and Old Norse, biological concepts in fantasy and science fiction. So we have a biology professor who's teaching a course on fantasy and science fiction and how biology is used and abused in fantasy and science fiction. Really cool module. Our creative writing stuff, which is awesome. We've got several language courses which are running longer term sequences. So ones with numbers like this, we've got a cohort of folks who are learning Egyptian hieroglyphics, which is really, really cool. And so they're in their 3rd month here. We'll run that again later on. Klingon is happening. So if you wanna sign up to learn Klingon, if you've been telling yourself you've always wanted to learn Klingon, well, here you go. We've got our anime module there on Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. We've got, we're starting a new cohort for learning Latin. We have a super enthusiastic Latin cohort, which is on their 5th month now. And we're starting another cohort here in May. Lots of folks wanting to learn Latin. And I have to say that, Drow Snake, we're totally going to get around to doing Shakespeare in the original. In fact, I think the Klingon series might even end up working on some translation work. You can get involved in helping out with some translation work. I mean, of course, translating, helping to translate more, Shakespeare from the original. So, yeah, really, really cool stuff. Natural or synthetic, that's a language module, right? So looking at how you, about invented languages, right? And how you, when you're doing language invention, you can make your language, the languages that you invent more convincing. Really cool stuff. Tolkien and magic. Tolkien's invented languages in the Lord of the Rings. So again, if you would like an introduction to reading Elvish, right? Again, it's one of those things, you've been reading Tolkien for a long time and you're like, but I can't actually do Elvish and I'm afraid to admit that to my friend. I'm embarrassed to admit that to my friends. Well, here you go. Anyway, so that's happening. So Evil Dr. Cannon wants to know, is James and Elise's Tengwar class happening? Well, see, Matt, that one is scheduled for June. So if we go ahead to June, we can see, I think it's at the bottom of the list. At the bottom of the list. There it is. Tolkien's Writing Systems. So that's where you can start learning Tengwar and such. So that's still a candidate module. If you want to make sure that happens, there's still time, right? So you've got through the end of it's now April. That's what it is. So you've got through the end of April. You buy a few tokens, and then you come into BlackBerry and you vote for it basically, and you're like, I totally want to take that. module, and then we'll run it, right? The more people we get, the more likely we are able to run it. So these are things that are coming in June. So cool. Module Until We Have Faces. Oh my goodness. Best thing C.S. Lewis ever wrote. Amazing book. A module on Sir Gawain and the Green Knight to read, to look at the original poem in Middle English, translations of it, like Tolkien's translation of it, and then the film adaptation as well. Really fun module on Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. We're starting a new in June. We're starting a new cohort for our Introduction to Old English. You know, again, you've always wanted to learn Old English. You know that Tolkien loved that, so here you go. You'll notice we do a lot of languages here in Space, and it's actually been one of the things that people have sort of raved most about Space so far, is that, you know, lots of times, and I'm sure many of you have had this experience where you want to learn a language, you kind of sit down to learn a language, but it's kind of, you kind of are looking, like you get a textbook, or you're watching doing Duolingo, or watching a, YouTube series or something like that. And it's just, eventually you stop, right? Being able to learn a language in a classroom environment with, the accountability and support of a group of peers and a dedicated teacher, it's really a total game changer in that way. So, yeah, Japanese fairy tales, the dragons module, so that you don't end up like Eustace Clarence Scrub, weak on dragons. The next Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood module, we've got our first ever Terry Pratchett module for Terry Pratchett fans. Which is which module? Which is pretty cool. Starting Scottish Gaelic, if you've ever wanted to learn Gaelic. So you can start learning Gaelic, you can start learning Greek. Lots of new languages going on here in June. So pretty awesome. Gildoliman says, besides, they don't offer Old English and Old Norse on Duolingo. Really? Why not? Sorry, from a Signum University perspective, that just seems so strange. Like, why would people not study Old English and Old Norse? Like, people study other things? I mean, like, and if so, why? Yeah, it's it's pretty fun. So anyhow, there we go. That's what's coming up in June. So this is BlackBerry. BlackBerry's a lot of fun. You can, you click right on it and be like, hey, I want to learn Greek. This is one of the ones I'm most tempted by. This one in Klingon. Now you'll notice the days and times aren't scheduled yet. That's because it's not confirmed, right? When people vote for it, then what we do is we talk to the people who voted for it, and we determine a schedule based on the precept, the teacher's availability, the preceptor's availability, and the students, and say like, okay, let's settle on a time. So we don't just like tell you a time and then you can't do it. We work with you on what time's available for you, and then we say, okay, it's definitely this time, and then everybody else who wants to take it has to take it at the time that's convenient for you because you voted in advance. That's kind of the way it works. Anyway, so here's the whole page on this, and we can see what's going on, all that kind of thing. Anyway, pretty cool stuff. That's BlackBerry. I just want to encourage you to check it out, and don't forget about the Hitchhiker Special. When you refer a friend, you get another token. It is so much fun to take Space with friends. We've had a whole bunch of people who buy tokens and give them away. Like buy tokens, give half of them away to a friend or something. The reason I have Space tokens in my own account here is that I've bought a bunch of tokens to give away to my kids, basically. As I say, my son has been learning hieroglyphics, and my son has heard certain rumors that we're going to have beginning Japanese coming soon to Space, and he is all over that like nobody's business. So anyway, that is what is happening in Space, and it's been really, really exciting. So I hope you'll consider joining in with us in Space. Go to signumuniversity.org/space. You can scroll down to the BlackBerry sign in and sign up for BlackBerry. Just create an account. It's really simple, and then you're in to BlackBerry. You can buy tokens, check things out, and it's pretty awesome. So there we go. All right. So we're preparing for the road ahead. Of course, both we and Sam are preparing for the road ahead, so our actual discussion is going to be focused on the preparation for the road ahead, but we are also, I want to look ahead at the road ahead too. So a bunch of people have been asking a bunch of people have been asking, hey, like, when are we going to get to, like you're thinking of your favorite scene and wondering when we're going to get to it and exploring the Lord of the Rings. Evil Dr. Cannon has your answers here. Now, these calculations are based not only on the pace of our discussion, but also on the average number of Tuesdays that we've been skipping per year for the last 5 years. So here we go. Okay. When will we get to the Mirror, right? Other side of Moria. When will we arrive at the Mirror and stand next to Durin's Stone? May 2024. So that's just around the corner, right? In a scant 2 years, we'll be on the other side of Moria. So, Bridge of Khazad-dûm within the next 2 years. I think that's good news, right? I think that's good news. When will we get to Parth Galen? What do you think? Parth Galen? Any guesses? June 2027. There you go. June 2027. So that means we're going to be finishing the Fellowship of the Ring like this decade. Not within a decade of starting, mind. It'll be more than 10 years from, the beginning of the discussion, but it's still less than 10 years from now. So that's something. Yeah, I know. Mike says we just met Boromir. 2027 is too soon. I know, right? Like we're barely gonna have known Boromir for 5 years or something. Okay, how about Helm's Deep? When are we gonna get to Helm's Deep? 2033. 2033. June of 2033 is the projection for Helm's Deep. That'll be fine, right? So 11 years and a little bit more from now is when we're gonna do Helm's Deep. So that's Arkenbrand is gonna beat us there, you think? Yeah. So the Bridge of Khazad-dûm, oh man, that's just around the corner for Dallas. I mean, that's like next year or something. We're practically there. Practically there. And Spectre, I expect to get to Gimli's poem probably this year, in just a little bit. As I say, I mean, man, we're like, okay, maybe next year, but close. We're totally close. Okay, how about Ithilien? What's the probability for when we're gonna hit? When we're gonna get Rabbit Stew? May of 2039. May of 2039 is the projected date for our arrival in Ithilien. Shelob's Lair. 2042. A cool 20 years from now will be. So that means that in 20 years from today, we may be on the stairs of Cirith Ungol, right? That's exciting. I think that'll be fun. Battle of Pelennor Fields. Battle of Pelennor Fields, April of 2048. April of 2048. So 26 years from now, we'll get to the battle. See, the more you think about it, the sooner all this seems, doesn't it? Right? Mount Doom, likely to get to the Cracks of Doom somewhere around 2052. 2052. So 30 years from now. So in 20 years, right? We'll be where was it? Was it Shelob's Lair? We're gonna get to in 20. I'm forgetting already. Yeah. Shelob's Lair. 20 years to Shelob's Lair. 30 years to the Cracks of Doom. And Grey Havens. October of 2056. Now, mind, that's when we're scheduled to start the Grey Havens. I say scheduled. That's what the current projection is. That will end there. There we go. 2056. That's our. So, which means, if you think about that, by Tolkien's birthday in January of 2057, a mere 40 years after we started, we may be pretty close to finishing. So we might actually, possibly, discuss the entire Lord of the Rings in 40 years or less. And I think that's quite something. I really do. I think that's gonna be fine. So yes. What about the appendices? Well, we'll see. As I've said before, I come from a long-lived family on my mother's side. There's time yet. We'll see. In case you're wondering, in October of 2056, I'll be 82. So I like my chances. I'm serious, by the way, about being from a long-lived family on my mother's side. My maternal grandparents just celebrated their 76th wedding anniversary. So, like, seriously, long-lived family on my mother's side. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, I think it's likely to be. I think we'll be fine. Now, the many people I know, when we look forward to the dates like this, are thinking about how much they're likely to miss, right? Or whether or not they're going to make it. Just keep in mind that exploring the Lord of the Rings is like it's like a metaphor for life, right? It's not about how far down the road you get. It's about enjoying the journey, right? The point is, here's the way to think of it. The way to think of it is not, man, we're going to take so long, I'm never going to finish before I die. The point is, we're going to get to discuss the Lord of the Rings for the rest of our lives together, right? I mean, that's the way to look at this, right? That we're not going to run out of the Lord of the Rings in the lifetimes of most of us here, right? So there we go. That's the way to think about it. So anyhow, so thanks, Evil Dr. Cannon, for working that out. We'll see. We'll see how we do. But again, it's been several years since I have basically, come to the conclusion, sort of made the decision that this is what I'm this is what I'm doing on my Tuesday evenings until the day I die, pretty much. So we'll see. Am I going to get to do Exploring the Silmarillion afterwards? Well, I don't know. I don't know, but there might be some other options there. I do have some other plans in my back pocket, so we'll see. We'll see what we can do. I have a notion or two, but more on that later on. Okay, let's get back to the text at last. So, Sam eased the pack on his shoulders and went over anxiously in his mind all the things that he had stowed in it, wondering if he had forgotten anything. His chief treasure, his cooking gear, and the little box of salt that he always carried and refilled when he could. A good supply of pipeweed, but not near enough, I'll warrant. Flint and tinder, woolen hose, linen, various small belongings of his master's that Frodo had forgotten and Sam had stowed to bring them out in triumph when they were called for. He went through them all. Rope, he muttered. No rope. And only last night you said to yourself, Sam, what about a bit of rope? You'll want it if you haven't got it. Well, I'll want it. I can't get it now. All right. Yeah, JJ, I've also, have to admit, always wondered that, right? Why? I mean, as we've just seen, I wondered even more now than before reading through as carefully as we've been doing. I mean, I know it seems to us like they've been sitting around for months ready to go, and it probably wasn't actually as long as that to them. But seriously, like in the last scene we were just looking at, they're all just sitting there doing nothing, waiting for Gandalf to come out, right? Why can't Sam just be like, okay, we've been waiting around for a long time. Just give me like 2 minutes. I need some rope, right? I don't know. I don't know. I think it says more about Sam. I think it says more about Sam's perspective, Sam's attitude, than it says about like Elrond's hospitality, right? Or Gandalf's impatience or something like that. Like Sam really thinks that somebody, Gandalf, Elrond, somebody's going to say no, right? If he's like, actually, I just realized I don't have any rope. Can I have a coil rope, for the road? Exactly, Drow Snake. I think it's exactly that. I think he's too polite and or thinks it's his sole responsibility. Yeah, exactly, Two Juice Man. He doesn't want to cause a fuss, right? He doesn't, well, I'll want it. I can't get it now. That's his assertion, right? I can't get it now. I bet he could have done, but it does, I think, tell us some other things. Look at that first paragraph before we get to the rope paragraph. Sam eased the pack on his shoulders and went over anxiously in his mind all the things that he had stowed in it, wondering if he had forgotten anything. What's the purpose of this paragraph? Why do we get this? Or let me ask this question another way. What are we getting here? Notice how, sometimes when I'm talking about the Silmarillion, I'll talk in terms of like how far away from the ground we are, right? Like this story is being told from like 10,000 feet, right? We can see, we're getting the whole, kind of historical overview, sometimes from like 30,000 feet when we're doing genealogies or something like that. Sometimes it swoops down pretty close, right? This is really close, right? Look how close this is to Sam's experience. We're not only getting Sam's internal thoughts, right? Sam's thinking, we're not only getting his thinking and feeling, we're getting his internal monologue, right? Like his own comments in his own words, but not near enough, I'll warrant, right? His own interior monologue in the first person is what we're getting, right? But not only that, look at that first phrase. Sam eased the pack on his shoulders. That's a kind of thing we don't often get from Tolkien, right? We don't often get this level of detail. I get told Tolkien's just not one of those narrators who will give us a whole lot of stage directions, right? We don't usually get things like, Aragorn brushed his hair back, from his, like describing people's mannerisms, what they're doing with their hands, what they're doing with their posture, what their clothes look like at that moment. Like some narrators give us a lot of that, right? A lot of that kind of thing. We, wanting to spell out the entire scene so that we can picture it exactly in our heads. And that can work. That can be really effective in some ways. It also, if you're somebody like Robert Jordan, can lead you to write a 14,000 page series that you die before you finish. but I mean, it can work. It can work really well. But it's unusual for Tolkien. We don't normally zoom in. I mean, if if like the genealogies are 30,000 feet, we're inside Sam's head. Like we're less than 4 feet off the ground right here. Right. Yeah. We're learning about Sam, the character, here, for sure. It demonstrates his nerve. I see a lot of people talking about anxiety and things like that. Check out how heavy Sam's pack is. Sure. Yeah. We definitely see. We're reminded of how Sam. We were told, remember when they set out from Bag End, Frodo makes the comment about Sam taking more than his fair share, and that Frodo was going to look into it at their next packing. Well, apparently Frodo's been insufficiently vigilant in that, right? Because Sam is apparently getting away with packing himself extra again. Yeah. I do agree. So getting his conscientiousness, again, not just about taking more, right, than he should, but looking at this kind of glimpse in his mind, right? Green Great Dragon, I like that theory. I like that theory that this is Frodo's narration with hobbitry teasing Sam for the whole rope scene later on. It's really tempting, of course, to say Sam has to have written this, right? Because I mean, this is from his perspective. I still don't believe it. I absolutely think that it was Frodo writing this, right? And for my money, this paragraph is one of the most affectionate in all of book 2, right? This little profile of Sam. It's easy to overlook Sam, right? Remember Frodo of the Shire alone with his servant who goes to Mount Doom, right? Sam doesn't even get mentioned by name in the synopsis and of the Rings of Power in the Third Age. Yeah, it's easy to overlook Sam. Remember the story that Yorith is telling her kinsman. Remember, head to that, right, during the coronation scene, about how Frodo went up the mountain and wrestled with a Dark Lord all by himself, right? That's, the story in the city. It's easy to overlook Sam, right? But the narrator is not overlooking Sam and not letting us overlook Sam, right? What are we not overlooking about Sam? What do we learn here? What are we shown here? We are shown how conscientious he is, right? Look at the things that he's thinking through, wondering if he'd forgotten anything. What is his chief treasure? His cooking gear, right? His cooking gear is his chief treasure. Why? So that he can cook food not for himself, but for others, right? The little box of salt that he always carried and refilled when he could. A good supply of pipeweed, flint and tinder, wool and hose, linen, various small belongings of his master's that Frodo had forgotten and Sam had stowed to bring them out in triumph when they were called for. It's that sentence, the end of that sentence that most convinced me that it's Frodo writing this, right? Frodo remembering fondly the times when he did realize he forgot things and Sam pulled them out, right, in triumph. Sam wouldn't have drawn attention to that. I don't think Sam would have drawn attention to that, but Frodo would, right? And so in my views, right, this is, yeah, exactly, JJ. I also can't imagine Sam writing about himself being triumphant in that way. Yeah, agreed. But if this is a sort of a profile of Sam written by Frodo, you can see, what is he telling us about Sam? He's telling us Sam's chief treasure was his cooking gear, right? That thing that enabled him to cook for everybody, right? To serve everybody with food. Another treasure, his little box of salt that he carried and always refilled when he could. Sam's attention to details, right? Salt, really important. Most people not going to be thinking about that, right? Most people, when they're packing for a journey, not going to think to bring salt, right? But you bring a little box of salt, it can make a really big difference when you're cooking, right? In the stew that you're making and serving to everybody. But Sam, of course, not only thinks to bring it, but thinks to refill it whenever he gets a chance, right? Always on the lookout for salt, right? That he can use to refill his little box, right? Pipeweed, because Sam loves his pipe, apparently, and also, I suspect, because he's also sharing that with Frodo as well, presumably, right? He laid in a good supply, probably, I'm guessing, in case Frodo needed some too. Warm clothes, right? Extra underwear. And of course, those things which Frodo, in retrospect, remembers forgetting, but that Sam did not forget, right? And then the overall picture at beginning and end of the list. Went over anxiously in his mind all the things he had stowed, wondering if he had forgotten anything. He went through them all, right? At the beginning and the end of that paragraph. This picture of Sam thinking not about how heavy his pack is, not his only concern is lest his pack be insufficiently heavy, right? Did I leave anything out? That's how far he is from grumbling about his pack. But here he is going through a full inventory of what he has in his pack. Did I remember everything? Is there anything else that I could have done? And then rope. No rope. And then we get not an internal monologue, but an external monologue. Sam talking to him, muttering to himself. Only last night you said to yourself, Sam, what about a bit of rope? So this is Sam talking to himself and telling himself about something that he told himself the night before, right? So the only thing that would have been cooler is that if he'd been remembering that, if we were getting an internal monologue of Sam's monologue to himself about what he had been monologuing to himself earlier, right? It's almost the trifecta there. Talk about indirection, right? Talk about Sam's private life being kind of displayed for us here, right? What Sam focused on, what he didn't do, right? And he's chiding himself because he actually remembered it. He remembered rope last night. But then he didn't apparently have a chance to get some right away. And then one thing drives out another, as you'll understand. And then now, you'll want it if you hadn't got it. Well, I'll want it. I can't get it now. Yeah, exactly. Aaron says, because of the Lord of the Rings, rope is the first thing I think to pack when I fantasize about going on an adventure. Exactly. Sam's a warning to us all. I mean, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. Thinking, Mad Violinist, you were referring earlier to Chekhov's rope, right? On the one hand, yes, it does set up Sam and the rope later on, right? But it isn't really necessary for that. This makes it sound, this moment, I'll want it, I can't get it now, makes it sound like And the day shall come when like bitterly shall Sam rue the day when he forgot the rope, right? That like there's coming a moment when rope will become like the lack of rope is going to be a crucial plot element, right? And it's not actually gonna happen. Spoiler. Right? There will come a moment where Sam will think about it again and wish he had a rope. But the company doesn't suffer. Doesn't suffer for not having rope at any point. There's a significant sense in which this line is not going to pay off later on. It kind of will in a different way, right? It will form sort of part of this. The payoff for this line, really, of course, I think, is when Sam is standing at the bottom of the cliff, right, tugging on the rope, helping us to understand Sam's mindset in that moment, right? What is Sam thinking and feeling when he's standing at the bottom of the cliff, tugging on the rope tied to the rock at the top of the cliff? That is that I think is the moment where this line is going to pay off, but not in a simple way like we might have thought. Yeah. Cora, that's interesting. It's a kind of interesting contrast in Sam's character. He doesn't consider himself important enough to make an issue of the rope. Like, he doesn't actually say anything and say, "Hey, can I get the rope?" But neither does he trust any of the important people to pack it. Yeah, you're right. It doesn't occur to him like, it's okay. I'm sure Aragorn packs some rope, right? Strider will have taken care of the rope thing. It'll be fine. No, this is his job, right? This is his job. His job is to think of things, and if something needs to happen, right? If Mr. Frodo needs to, if rope is needed to save Mr. Frodo, oh wait, yeah, that will happen, won't it? But not when he doesn't have a rope. When he does again. But anyway, it's his job to have a rope just in case, right? Yeah, he doesn't. I think so. I think it's not a question of like distrust. It's a lack of passing the buck, right? He's not going to just assume that somebody else is gonna do that. This is his job. This is his job. But okay, let's see. Bjorning was drawing my attention to Lupita's comment that I'd missed before. Sam read what Frodo wrote, praising his preparing, and Sam added he forgot rope to show he wasn't perfectly prepared. I like that. So yes. So your theory, Lupita, is that Frodo writes the first paragraph, right? And leaves it at that. And then Sam, later on, adds the second paragraph, right? Because he's like, oh man, like, I'm embarrassed even to read this. Not only because, like, it's a big old paragraph about me, right? But also because I totally forgot the rope, right? He's like, he's not laying enough emphasis on the fact that I had actually screwed that up. That's interesting. I do like that. I don't think I'm wholly convinced, mostly because it's not that I can't believe Sam did that. I think that is a thing that Sam would do, but I don't think he would do it this way. I think that he would simply have quietly inserted a sentence about how, but he had totally forgotten the rope, right? I think that the second paragraph is probably Frodo too. And again, I think so for two reasons. One, because I think it sets us up for Sam and the rope later on, which we'll get to sometime in the 40s. But it also, I think, it's more dialogue from Sam, right? More of Sam's talk. More of Sam's talk. We'll get to that passage 20 years from now. More of Sam's talk, Frodo says, is what he would want from the start of what he is imagining his Frodo's theoretical imagined Hobbit child listener audience, right, for the story. He imagines the theoretical Hobbit child listening to their story, saying that he wished he could hear more of Sam's talk. Now, JJ, that I can get behind. That's an excellent compromise. JJ says maybe Sam read that first paragraph and reminded Frodo that he had forgotten the rope. Like it's not a just treatment, right? Because Sam had totally forgotten rope. And so he should take that paragraph out because Sam doesn't deserve the praise, right? So in response, Frodo added another paragraph about Sam, right? Fairly putting in that he had forgotten the rope, but doing so in a way which gives us more of Sam's talk, right? More of Sam talking to himself. I agree. As we were discussing before, I mean, we've been with Sam and Bill, right, here for several paragraphs now, which is like it's a fairly significant little chunk of text, right, as you're reading through, time that we're spending. And again, think about it, right? Think about this moment. Remember, we had that reference to only Elrond understood what this moment meant to Aragorn. So take a step back from that for a second. This moment is a huge deal. The quest of the ring, which in retrospect, we know is going to be, the culmination of the Third Age, the heroic climax of the Third Age. It is setting out here tonight. This is it, right? King ELOTR, the mythic king, returned from exile, returned from the, mists of history, from out of the wilds and on the wings of song, is going to return to Gondor triumphantly as the king to heal, to, lead, to save them in battle. I mean, all this stuff, right? All this stuff begins today, right? The journey of Gandalf, which is going to lead to his death and his return and the White Rider and everything else, right? This is a lot of fanfare. Could be a lot of fanfare, right? A different author might have decided that this was the moment for some purple prose, right? We might have gotten, and on this day, you'd think that maybe if he had less discretion, less unwillingness to impose upon the text, except, when it really needs it, Findegil King's writer might have done a little bit more here in this passage, right? Might have decided that, a nice little, maybe even a little poem, right? How about a poem? Right? How about something triumphant, right? Maybe some kind of hymn of praise, who knows? Any number of things, right, might be sort of appropriate here. What happens? Instead, we spend these last minutes with Sam and the pony, right? Hearing Sam's talking, mostly to himself, sometimes to the pony, and often to himself. This is the perspective from which we see this big moment, right? Yeah. Exactly, Lincoln. That kind of sentence. The Nine Walkers, emissaries of that, emissaries of the council, which was the legacy of the last alliance, set forth to accomplish the mission the last alliance had left only partially fulfilled. Exactly. So begins the journey of ELOTR to his throne. So all that stuff could happen, right? Why not? Well, no. Instead, we get what is almost the conceptual opposite of that. Instead of the grand big picture instead of the blare of trumpets and the sounding of horns. We did, of course, get that, but it was embarrassing when we did, or rather, it was inappropriate when we did Boromir. Instead, we get Sam. Sam is the representative, right? But in a sense, of course, this works perfectly well. In a sense, this does give us a window. And like, this is the fanfare. Sam thinking over how he can most effectively serve his master is actually a pretty good glimpse into the quest for the ring. It's like Elrond's comments about small hands, right? Sam's got the smallest hands in the room, as we said before. Small hands do them because they must. This is Sam, his love, his duty, right? His sense of duty, his determination to his suppression of his own desires. You know, the scene in the film when Sam not exactly asks to go home. I mean the one in Rivendell, right? Where Sam, you know, the like, seeing as you're on the mend, I thought we might be headed home. That scene with Frodo, right? I didn't dislike that scene in the film. I think it sort of effectively reminds us of Sam's character, which we get less of in the film, of course, than we get in the book. Naturally, we get less of everything in the film than in the book because it's so much shorter. But anyway, not only do we not get that is Sam agitating to go home. Sam, you know, requesting to, you know, hoping out loud, right, that they're now going to be heading home. We have Sam thinking selflessly, determinedly about the road ahead. And to call it selfless is not even quite fair. It's not just that he's not thinking of himself. It's that he is thinking entirely of others, especially, of course, Frodo. He is preparing for things that he might want and need. I assume he is going to smoke some of that pipe weed. He does probably have some of his own woolen hose and linens in the pack as well. But yeah, he is not thinking of himself. He is thinking of other. The only sense in which he's thinking of himself is he's thinking about his own, how well he is performing his job, right? Performing his duty. That's Sam. But again, that's not just Sam. That's the quest for the ring, the quest of the ring, right? This is what winning looks like. This is why Frodo was chosen. This is why Glorfindel's not setting off with the ring, right? Or Gandalf or somebody like that, right? It's this kind of attitude. This, of course, is also why Sam is the perfect auxiliary ring bearer, right? But if you set out on the quest not being reminded about what a historically significant moment this is, what remarkable accomplishments are about to be accomplished by these people, you know, setting out from this time here. It does, JJ, really highlight the humility, I think. I think that's a really important thing about Sam. It isn't just that Sam is awesome. He is. But it's the particular ways in which Sam is awesome are the very ways that are most important to the fulfillment of this quest, to the resisting of the lure of the ring. And Sam, not Frodo, is the perfect illustration of that. Now, again, I think there's a bias here, in a sense, right? We don't see it from Frodo himself, right? And that itself is a really interesting narrative choice that Tolkien is making, isn't it? What I mean is, Frodo's his main character. And in one sense, the narrative is going to stay closest to Frodo much of the time, right? And yet we don't get as much. We get some, but not all that much of Frodo's internal thoughts, right? At times, we certainly did back in like chapter 2, right? We were hearing about Frodo. We were pretty squarely from Frodo's perspective and hearing about what he was thinking and feeling during the trip across the Shire, and that kind of thing, and in the Barrows. I mean, a lot of book 1 is from Frodo's perspective. But we're getting more of Sam now. Think about the difference between this scene, what we're seeing and hearing from Sam, and what we heard and saw from Sam back in book 1. Think about how we're told by Sam that he had a conversation with the elves, right? Back in chapter 3 and 4, right? At the beginning of chapter 4, we hear about it. But we don't actually get that scene narrated to us. From this perspective, it seems almost strange that we didn't, right? But the narrative is here in book 2, shifting more towards Frodo, or towards Sam, sorry, and away from Frodo than it was in book 1, right? Now that Frodo has become the ring bearer, the attention shifts not to Frodo, but to Sam. And that, I think that's, it's a fascinating choice, but it also, as I say, I think sets the scene in a really important way. Think about, like, what are our options here for what we could be hearing about in this moment of waiting before they depart? We could be getting a narrator's, like, big overview, right? Like we were talking about, some big fancy speeches about this is a solemn moment, right? As Thorin might have said. But we don't get that. We could get what's internal to Frodo in this moment, right? But we don't get that either. What's Frodo thinking about? I think Frodo is likely terrified at this moment, right? Really nervous, really uneasy. And the text, the narrative doesn't focus on Frodo's worries, Frodo's fears. Remember, we've gotten glimpses of it. We've gotten glimpses of it in his speech. Remember that one little glimpse of him looking out at that red star in the southern sky, right? Which is a significant moment. Moments like that are kind of showing us some of Frodo's uncertainty or fears. But that's not what the narrative is going to be dwelling on, right? Instead, the poster child of the Company of the Ring, as they're setting out, is Sam. Sam thinking about all the extra stuff he's crammed into his pack so that he could carry more and other people could carry less, and that he could and making sure that he remembered to bring all the things that will help him serve other people better. Right? That's the perspective from which we begin the journey. Yeah, and Jackie, I agree. I mean, Frodo's not going to want to go there. But I think it would be, imagine how hard to read The Lord of the Rings would be if we spent the whole time in touch with Frodo's feelings, right? There are plenty of authors who make this mistake, and I think it's a mistake, right? If your protagonist is in the grip of continual dread or anxiety, right? And you as an author are trying to make the reader share in like this continual ongoing dread and anxiety that the protagonist is feeling, that often doesn't work. And when it does work, it's kind of horrible, right? It really is kind of horrible. Almaria says, AKA so many young adult novels. Yes, exactly. Exactly. That stuff he lets us see from the outside, not because he's trying to hide it, right? We're going to see it. We're going to see it, and we're going to be made to feel it. but we're not invited into that. We're spared that in some sense, right? But I think it's not just that it would make it into a horribly painful narrative to read, but also because it isn't the point, right? There is something in the end, I think, triumphant about Sam's perspective. The triumph of love and humility, right? This is the triumph of love and humility as they're setting out. And that is what the Company of the Ring, that's what the Quest of the Ring is all about. Yeah, very cool. Dan, I agree. Dan says the description of the gloomy weather and the atmosphere of this scene from a few paragraphs back shows us what Frodo is feeling here without it becoming repetitive. Yes, we often can get that sense of sort of emotional oppression, right? Without having to be dragged in it quite as forcibly or as repetitively as that. Bjorning, I'm using the word triumph not just loosely, almost ironically, right? Again, saying in contrast to the whole, we don't get what we don't get is a parallel to the beginning of Theoden's ride out of Dunharrow, right? Let's quote, some epic poetry about this moment, because this moment is going to be so important in the future history of this kingdom that I'm going to let you in on the fact that someday bards are going to write stories about this moment and look back on this moment as this huge turning point, right? I mean, we get that when Theoden sets out from Dunharrow. We could get a similar thing, right? I mean, the greatest come from behind triumph, of the Third Age is about to happen, right? Some of the greatest, most amazing, remarkable events in millennia are starting this evening, here on this gray, gloomy Christmas evening in Rivendell. But meanwhile, we're spending that momentous evening thinking about Sam's extra underwear and the fact that he forgot to pack any rope. And that just, it seems to me not only appropriate, but important, that we are being persistently kept in this frame, right? In Sam's frame. And also don't forget, it's important for us to get to know Sam, right? It's easy to overlook, but I'm reminded of Frodo's line. This is reminding backwards instead of forwards. I'm reminded of Frodo's line. I'm learning a lot about Sam Gamgee on this trip, right? Even Frodo didn't really know Sam all that well, in a sense, right? Or rather, he's learning new things about him on the trip, right? First he was a conspirator, then now he's a jester, right? This is after Sam sings the troll song, right? We have seen Sam in various ways. There have been moments when Sam has already provided us, the readers, with some important cues, such as the scene when he's looking back from the Buckleberry Ferry, right, at the Shire disappearing behind him, moments like that where we're getting some things from Sam's perspective. Sam's disapproval of Farmer Maggot, right, him being not quick to forgive anybody who had beaten his master however long ago, right? There have been moments like that where we've gotten to see some of Sam's Tom Bombadil, he's a caution and no mistake. But there's still a lot more that we need to learn about him. And because of how important Sam is going to be, right? Sam is going to become the hero of the story, right? And there is no way that any of us could possibly suspect that. We don't know Sam nearly enough yet, right, to be in a position to anticipate or understand that. Yeah. Yep. So I think it's really interesting and really important that we're kind of this close to Sam here. All right. I'm going to resist the temptation to start the next slide because the next paragraph is a fat paragraph. And it's Elrond's last words. And some of the last words Elrond is ever going to say. He gets a few speeches after this, but not very many. In the whole rest of the Lord of the Rings, I mean. So we're going to get Elrond's last words pretty soon. So I think they are at least his last words in this decade. It's going to be a good 25 years before we hear from Elrond again, Drowsnake. So we better savor the next. So let's not rush through the next slide, right? That wouldn't be right. Absolutely. Yeah, he is going to get quoted, Jackie. It's true. We'll get even a message from him, right? But not dialogue from him until near the very end. Okay. All right. Very good. Let's stop there. We'll go at field trip time. Thanks for those of you who are just able to join us for our book discussion tonight. And I'll try to get my display to redraw itself appropriately. Okay, there we go. Excellent. So in our field trip this evening, we are going to head to back to the Angle, right?
Yep, that's right.
Okay, I think Gairond is still. Oh, that's right. Tonight is our quest for the next milestone, right? I think that's what we're going to do. All right.
Update. Fill it up real quick. I'll do it.
I love how I appear right next to my name twin here when I show up here. Okay. So from here we're going to head south. We did head south last time, and we got as far as the what we were convinced was an abandoned temple, right?
Yes, that's right.
The Rudaran, what we suspect to be a Rudaran temple.
Yes. I gotta say, it's a bit of a comfort to know what I'm going to be doing on the Tuesday for the next 40 years.
Isn't it though? I mean,
yes, but at the same time, I'm coming to the grips with the reality of my own mortality, which is not as much fun. But...
Well, it's fine. See what I say? It's fine. It's, it just means that we're never gonna run out of things to discuss for as long as we live. Who could ask for more?
Yeah. Honestly, we're going to talk about Tolkien until the day we die anyway.
Exactly. That's just it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Josh Snake is saying that. Yeah, right, exactly. I saw a couple people asking about this before. How long will ELOTR be around for? Hopefully just as long. Just as long, but we'll see. I mean, of course,
I hope so.
ELOTR has already had
VR analogs till then.
Right. ELOTR has had this amazing run, right? Beyond the expectation of most games, but yeah, I'm certainly hoping to celebrate our 40th anniversary class as we're discussing the Grey Havens in
Some sort
in
of
our lower
costume
hall there.
virtual reality chat.
Right, exactly.
Hopefully not one that requires physical participation because, I don't know how spry I'm going to be at that age.
Fun fact, ELOTR celebrates its 15th anniversary next week.
I still
There you
can't believe that. I'm like, that's blowing my mind a bit.
Yeah, yeah. It is
Time to
amazing.
get some badgers.
Yeah, 15 years. Maybe the Grey Havens will be in the game by then, Katriana. Who knows?
But we're getting more Shire next week.
That's true. That's true. Okay, all right. These are
We're going to
the...
see the bad part of the neighborhood. It'll be great.
That'll be fun. We can go there after we finish the angle here. Continue. Okay, so we're now setting off. So we're passing on the right. Ooh, hang on. We got a fork here. This is the... Oh, no, this is not the major fork in the road.
No, this is a different fork.
Okay. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah, okay. Why the heck?
Why should we leave
We're
it?
talking about how Frodo, we're not seeing inside Frodo's head, and it's like we didn't see inside Frodo's head. He talked about the weather. This is how British people talk about their feelings.
Right.
It's raining outside.
Right.
Which is code for I am in the depths of despair at this moment.
This is a nice little waterfall and pool. How
Yeah.
lovely. How lovely. The path goes up to the top of the waterfall. This was a paved road once upon a time. And it's not even on the map. Yes, it is. Oh, I see. We're just in the wrong place. Okay, so this is headed to the other place there. Okay, well, hang on. All right, so we will come back this way then. All right, I thought this was a side path that wasn't on the map, but it's not. This is the road on the map. Okay, fine.
I think we just miscalculated.
Yeah. All right. So, okay. And we're passing. We've got some more dead folks wandering around there. We got some more oath breakers.
Yep.
Who...
Can't throw a stone but hit an oathbreaker out here.
I mean, you would think that word would get around, right?
People
I mean, like,
breaking vows left and right.
sooner or later, somebody would be like, you know what? I think maybe
we
breaking
shouldn't
that oath
try.
probably not a good idea, right?
Yeah, but then, you think of all the common sense things people know about today that they still do because they don't feel like it,
That's true. That's true. Okay, so we still got, all right, we've got the topmost towers of the temple back there. Just kind of looking around here. I can't see anything now. Okay, there's our waterfalls, a set of waterfalls here. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry. Just not wanting to miss the scenery. And, yeah, Gildoliman, it's interesting, right? Because on the one hand, all the Oathbreakers around shows you that it's a really big deal not to keep your word, right? And exactly how, like, culturally deviant it is. Metaphysically deviant, right? To break your word. And yet, yeah, people are just doing it all over the place, apparently.
Yeah, but there's always the paradox of piety, the idea of, well, these people did it because they were bad people, but I'm a good person, therefore if I do it, it won't be bad.
I see, right. Right.
No,
yes.
that's very much a real blind side, just philosophically and theologically.
Right. Oh, hang on.
The minute you divide people into them and us, suddenly everything they do is bad, but we do it, it's good, so it won't happen to us.
Right.
That's how you get that. That's how you get oathbreakers all over the place.
There you go. Okay, so we have some more ruins. We've got some columns. Who was here? This looks...
Relic hunters, aka poachers.
Right, okay, so we got some
Arnorian.
relic snatchers. Yeah, this does look Anorian. I think some kind of Rudauran place.
Yep. Great detail on the moss.
Yeah, I'm looking at the boulders here. The lichen on these boulders is kind of throwing me off because I keep thinking they're like worked
Or something.
Well, I think that they're ruins, and I'm like, no, just a boulder, in fact.
Do you liken
okay.
the lichen?
So where are we? We're just south of that temple thing. And
It's a
for all we
series
can
of
see, we
small
see
walls.
nothing but pillars
Yeah.
fallen over. I don't see any walls.
Oh. They're
So
definitely after something here. I wish I knew what they were hunting. It'd give us a clue as to what this was.
oh, this guy's tapping very carefully with his very large hammer, working this
Use a
pile of
bull-
dirt very cautiously.
bulldozer to find a china cup.
Yeah. Oh, right. No, that's a platinum deposit. So, if it's Rudaran, I'm not sure.
I feel like the fog isn't helping us get our bearings here.
Yeah, we're a fair bit south from the temple place.
Yeah.
I mean, if
says that-
these were
yeah.
if these were elvish ruins, I'd say it was a party spot.
Yeah.
I guess we have seen some like a little gazebos and things, Rudaran
columns-
gazebos and such.
Yeah, these columns are too big for that, though. But it does look
Yeah.
like whatever was here is buried in some sort of landslide. Like, this is not just normal fall over,
Right.
you know, into the swamp, burning down stuff. This is like rocks fall, everyone dies.
Right. Possibly so. Possibly so. This is the big river, right? So okay.
Yep.
Yeah. We're okay.
Misty,
So
moisty morning.
this is the Mitheithel over here, right?
I think so, yes.
Because then that's the Bruinen coming down over there. So, okay, they do look really weathered, Katrina. The pillars, I mean. Yeah, oh, that's a wolf. Okay.
Yeah.
I have.
They're less
There's-
weathered than the boulders, though.
Yeah, that's true.
But the boulders might have just come from uphill.
It's the color and shape of the stones more than anything else. Really, that's the only thing. I don't see any other obvious indicators that says these are Rudaran pillars. But they probably were.
Yeah.
Anyway, is that a... no. Is that a carving on the side of it?
Let's see.
Right there?
It's the usual one we see, yeah.
Kind of looks like a face, but I think maybe I'm just
It's
seeing
it's
faces
one of those.
in the clouds.
Yeah, it's one of those little pareidolia dealies.
Yeah. Some kind of outdoor gathering space, worship
know.
spot.
There might be some clues if we go up the road.
Yeah, let's see what we have. Just
Maybe
because
there's
we're
something up there that fell down.
right. It's just kind of in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah. Well, maybe it was up on top of that rock and the temple itself fell over and fell down the hill.
Oh, whoa. Well, some of them are still standing, though. That would seem unlikely if it had fallen all the way down.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. Right, see now, this is clearly
Have to
same
reenact
kind of
it, isn't it?
stone. Right, with the explicitly Rudaran markings.
Yep.
This was a defensive structure, so this seems to have been...
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, we got a whole curtain wall over here, all the way
Yeah,
down
this is meant to
the
withstand
river.
some pretty heavy-duty fire here.
Yeah,
And
relatively
possibly
thick
block
wall.
off that water. Maybe.
Yeah, it might have had a sort of a like a sluice gate across there. Oh wow! Look at this place. Okay,
Ooh,
this is cute. What do
Huh.
we have here?
little
All right,
human fisher village,
Yeah.
possibly of the type that Gollum raided.
Huh. Thatched roofs. Stones probably stolen from our Norian ruins nearby.
Torenhad. Exactly. Waste not, want not.
Yeah, hard to blame them.
Nope.
I always, you know, I have a hard time not thinking that because there's sometimes when you're doing, like when you're looking at, you know, art history stuff and things, like, you know, you're seeing a ruin and being like, unfortunately, like, we can only guess at the splendor of what it must have looked like because, you know, like,
The heads are cut off and used as cannonballs.
well,
Yeah.
or no, well, I mean, okay, that's bad enough, but like, no, it's like, you know, oh, this old castle ruin, but unfortunately, all the locals dragged away the stones, you know, so, you know, we'll never know what it really looked like, and it's like kind of hard to blame the locals. One has to.
Yeah.
One has to
Also,
admit.
chances are it was a box, like most things.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got, all right, this one has a shingle roof. All of them have the stone foundations.
Definitely enough pine around here to get some good shingles and some tar.
Yeah. And yes, I will try to remember to both say hi to the stable master
Oh yeah, we got to get the milestone.
and remember to get the milestone, which was the goal. There we go. Okay. And it's not. So I'm trying to place where we've seen this before. What does this, architecturally speaking? If
Them look like
what-
some of the cottages in Coombe look a bit like this.
That's true. It doesn't look like Bree, not like downtown Bree in any case.
Yeah. Looks more like Archet and Coombe to me.
How about the Wildwood?
Wildwood? Oh, I've only seen some of the Wildwood, but yes, you're right.
Where?
Wildwood. It's the new area that connects to in Evendon.
Oh, well, I haven't seen it. How am I supposed to know? I wanna
You've
say,
been there.
No, I haven't. I mean, before, but not if it's a new area. I haven't. But anyway,
It's a little ways
no.
past Oakbarton,
Yeah.
across the river. But yeah, it's connected to all these human fishermen and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, it's
Anyway, no.
basically
The places where we've looked at, the places where we've been, it's not like the places on the other side of the mountains, right? It's not like the Anduin Vale places. They use less thatch over there.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like some of the Bjorning towns. Like what's it called? Where was it? Walls of Langfall? Yeah, Limlock is what I'm thinking of. Reminds me a little bit of that. What I'm trying to do is guess from the architecture, culturally speaking, where do these people come from? Like, what's the influence here? Because this is surprising to me because it's the only, isn't it? The only town we've seen. Are there other towns in the Trollshaws? I mean, there's Rivendell, but I mean, like, apart from Rivendell, I don't think so.
We are near to the Lone Lands.
Yeah, we got Oscaruth, you know, folks
Yeah,
squatting in the
Divine.
ruins over there. But I
Yeah.
don't think in the Trollshaws we get a couple camps, you know, rangers sitting at camps.
Yeah.
But I don't think we've really gotten villages. We've got, you know, a bunch of elves camped out at, you know, what's it called? That elf place over here by Talbrunn.
Non-Torenhad or something?
Yeah, no, I'm thinking of the one down Condal. That's
Condalath.
it. Echad Condalath. That's the one I'm thinking of. Catriona,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, so I don't think we did have any other human villages in the Trollshaws at all, which means that this place is, again, there's Oscaruth across the river, so it's not that far away across the river and down the way. Is it Lone Landy? You know, it kind of a little bit reminds me of the Forsaken Inn.
And Scruth. Mostly in the people's dress.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got okay, so like this guy looks like a ranger.
Yeah, I
Got some dudes. I mean, I do think these
Wouldn't-
guys seem to
wouldn't
be
be-
mostly human.
yeah.
Looking at their clothing.
They look a lot like the Eglain.
Yeah.
Oh, who's this little guy? Oh, two little guys.
Yeah, I was standing on one, which was not very friendly of me, I mean.
But you were good with kids.
I know, right? Here I am stepping on the children. That's just not good. Yeah, I'm looking at the styles of... Ooh, hey, look at this. She's got a... Look at the little, dog tag hanging from her belt. It's, of course, not the same as the one that we were seeing over in Gladden Fields. Where is it?
Mhm.
Bales Vanduin, right?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Holdvis over there, that whole Wood's Edge. Remember how they all had that wooden or leather thing dangling down from their belts?
Yeah, it looks
This
a bit like
is-
a chatelaine.
Yeah, this is different, but reminds me of it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the other woman's belt is just a bit of string tied around her waist there.
There's not the long braids though. We don't see those in some of the Forsaken Inns and other breeds.
Yeah. Oh, right.
And
Draw
yes,
Snake.
these will
I s-
generate different appearances.
Yeah, I see. We're getting the some NPC variations here for people, so that's that happens. Yeah.
Rivereth here definitely looks like she's from Ostgoroth.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that does seem to be where they're mostly.
Yeah, and we don't get to see much architecture out there because that's just a room that refugees are encamped in.
Right. Right. Yes.
Martin Luther hammering on the door here.
Yeah, I have no idea. I don't know. I wonder how many theses
Nailing
that
up
guy
each
has.
thesis individually.
Yeah, exactly. Nailing the theses individually to the door. Yes. Okay, and there's
Yeah, here's the ranger.
there's a ranger, right, with some quest or other.
Wouldn't be a
This is
settlement
quite
if
a-
there weren't rangers telling me to do their job.
This is quite an expansive village. This whole little
Yeah.
extra leg down here with. It's obviously been around a long time. Look at the age of this stone wall fence, right? So this
You wonder
is
if some of the human refugees we've seen coming were coming from up here,
yeah.
or
Um,
if this place is relatively undisturbed oasis in the tumult.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe that's why the elves and the rangers are here.
Right. So I was just looking to try to answer the question of what is the level of this area, and yeah, 45 looks like the answer. But you're right. I hadn't thought about that, but we never did actually see any of the native architecture, essentially, of the Eglain, right, of the folks of the Lone Lands, because we
canonically,
only
no one lives there.
right. Yeah, exactly. Because theoretically, no one lives there. They live across the river over here. Yeah, these squat, functional, sturdy stone houses, mostly thatched, sometimes shingled,
Very easy to burn.
spread out. Not, this is not a defensive. This is not a village that's, huddled in a circle with a palisade around it.
No. I
These are
thought it
not-
was at first because we saw the big thick walls, but then we come out here and everything's so sprawled out. Like
right.
Suburban,
Yeah, that's
suburban style.
right. That's historical, right? I mean, clearly. I mean, it used to be
Hmm.
a strong place. I'm going to guess because
Yeah.
down here,
Oh yeah, here we go. Here's the rest of the Bailey.
right, down here, this would have been, I'm betting you this is yeah, there's the Rudaran mark there. And notice these pillars are the same as those other ones. So
Yep.
that does prove that was definitely, Rudaran. But this was clearly a landing stage, right?
Oh yeah.
So we're taking shipping down, which of course you'd expect. I mean, you look at, where we are down here, which is not exactly where we are on the map, I think.
Ooh, it's a lily pad.
My green dots are not in quite the right place on the when I go out to the big map. But anyway,
Yep.
so we're in here. But again, you think of where Rudaur was, right? Rudaur stretched all the way through the northern Trollshaws and up to the eastern part of the North Downs and stuff. So the river Mitheithel would have been, you'd have gotten a lot of traffic downstream.
Absolutely. It does explain all the Rudaran presence along this coastline.
It sure does. It sure does. And it would explain why the defenses leading to down here, right? So that they can defend their little depot down here.
There's some spirit activity around here. We got a lot of lily pads and willows over here.
Lily pads and willows?
Uh-huh. Look down the tree. There's all those willow trees.
Oh,
Look
downstream?
Down the river. Look north. Yeah.
Oh,
Or
look
upstream,
north,
I
yeah.
should say.
Oh, right, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Lots of willows,
Beautiful little-
I agree.
Beautiful pops of color out here.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and you're right, Amathorn, that the village is well positioned. I mean, you can see how obviously the access to the river down here would be very useful to them too, even though the Rudaran trade, has long since stopped. But it's still a really strategic place for their village. They can probably still use the river if they need to get up to Oscar Ruth or something like that. The integration of the Rangers here is interesting too. But hardly surprising, as again, this is clearly the most significant human settlement in this entire region. I wanted to head up to the ruins on the hill
of children.
up here.
I can't think of any village where I saw a lot of children running around.
Yeah, it's yes,
breed
lots
self.
of children.
I wonder if this is the place they were evacuated to.
Well, again, this just seems like, I think it's just a curtain wall again. So this is the other side of that.
Yeah.
So here we're on the southern side of that
Oh
river
yeah.
that we were looking at. So, I was wanting to see if there was anything built up on the hill, because I was looking for the same thing, for something like, so I just was looking up at the skyline up there, and it's a boulder. I thought it might be a fortress on the hill, but no, we see where the curtain wall went to, and then that's pretty much it.
So still no clue what that one section of columns was. Probably just like a way station or watch station for the river to see what it was
Maybe.
coming down here.
Maybe.
This place is so big, it must have been some sort of outpost.
Yeah. No, I don't think that this village is set in the Fourth Age, Nancy. I think that this is. I don't have any reason to think that this wasn't a peaceful little area, right? I mean, if you think about it, the angle here is really pretty sheltered. If we look at the big map, trouble can come up from the south on the Greenway, right? But even if anybody comes up through the Enedwaith and crosses over the Glanduin, and heads up into the Trollshaws, this place down here in the angle of the two rivers is going to be one of the last places they're going to get to, right? Because they're going to go around the rivers on either side. Up to Bree, in the Bree to Weathertop area on the one side of the Mitheithel, or to this wide area, the Eregion area south of Rivendell. but yeah, it's the area between the two rivers is going to be nice and sheltered. So why wouldn't they be at peace? I mean, you could say, okay, well, they have some local dangers potentially, but the only local dangers are on the high moor, like Giant Valley and stuff up on the high moor. We were seeing, apart from the ghosts, which are awkward, one has to admit, nothing other than regular predators, right? Even within the game context, we're not seeing like a, camp of half orcs or something like that.
Yeah, just the odd treasure hunter trying to get in the way and possibly
Right.
ripping people up.
Right, exactly. And as long as they're sticking together here in their village, and there's plenty of them here, right, they should be fine. And you got, rangers looking out for them. They're probably not thinking about it that way. That is, the people aren't probably aren't thinking that the rangers are looking out for them, but they are. We could be confident that they are. So yeah, this is here in the shelter of the angle down here. We have this like peaceful life happening. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. All right. Well, I should let folks go. It's getting late. I was not expecting, when I saw this on the map, just the end of the road and the stable master and stuff. I was not expecting a whole village like this.
Yeah.
This is pretty cool.
Definitely not a one-horse town.
No, multiple horses in this town. So cool. All right. Well, we'll start here next time. We caught the milestone here, so we'll start from here, explore a little bit. Since we're so far south, we might as well continue. Ooh, looks like we've got a bigger ruin if we keep going down the road. Yeah, let's see if what we can find down there,
Yes.
and then work our way down towards the very southern tip of the angle. See if we can get a shot of a sight of Gwingris from the other side. And then we'll head back up the western bank over there. So, all right, that's where we'll head next time. Thanks everybody for joining us, and we will see everybody next week. Bye now.
Bye.